Hi, my name is Luke Scavang, and the story I would like to share with you today is an extremely embarrassing story. Not just for myself, but for the rest of my family as well. A small compilation of stories, if you will. Some include me, others have me as a bystander watching the events play out. This is what I like to refer to as the Mr. Joey saga. For those of you who don't know, my oldest brother is named Joseph, or Joe for short. He got the nickname Mr. Joey when he was counseling at our local church camp from a group called the Nightlights. That's knight as in a suit of armor. Now, Mr. Joey is the oldest of my 5 siblings, along with my older brother Hogan, my younger brother Daniel, and the youngest, my sister Hailey. From a very early age, I remember the kinds of things he could get us to agree to or trick us into doing. Now, I'm just going to say this up front. We were a bunch of stupid kids. When I was about 6, my brother Daniel was about 4, he told us that bunny poop was chocolate. And we believed him. Needless to say, he got a good laugh out of our expressions. And he even got Daniel again by telling him it was a bad piece of chocolate he tasted. He even convinced several of us, now this is not my sister Hailey, to touch a 9-volt battery to our tongues and the metal gate post that is supposed to keep the animals out of the one room. At one point, when I was about 13 to 14 years old, he convinced both my brother Daniel and my brother Hogan to try bungee jumping using oxygen tubing my grandfather gave him that he had spare left over. I told my mom what he was doing before he had the chance to hang our siblings. But he did almost fall from the tree branch because it was breaking because it couldn't support his weight. She gave him heck for that. And I remember the look on his face. He also tried using that same tube as a bathroom. He ran the tube from his bathroom into the toilet, and from the bathroom toilet into his room. And let's just say he tried using it, but he just ended up with a bunch of pee in his bed, and he ended up having to change the sheets that night. One time, when I was still probably around 15-ish, we got into a fight, me and him. He was only a year or 2 older, but he was bigger, taller than I was. And we started pushing each other and fighting, and he ended up pushing me into a bulletin board. The bulletin board had thumbtacks, and the thumbtacks all fell off. After I hit the bulletin board, I fell to my butt, where there were thumbtacks sticking up. Needless to say, I screamed, my siblings started laughing, my mom started giving him heck, and I had to pull a bunch of thumbtacks out of my butt. Another time when he was 17-ish maybe, him and his friend decided that they were going to get rid of the bee's nest outside. So he brought his friend over, and his friend and him, with no protection on, brought a bat. They started to beat the beehive with the bat. My mom kept saying to him, "You're going to get hurt, quit being stupid, and don't complain when you get stung." They did get the beehive down, but both of them got several different stings and were surrounded by a hive of angry bees. We stayed out of the hive for at least 2 days until all the bees had cleared out. We also figured out that same year that for some reason, whenever we have our light switch, it has a pull cord on it with our fan. It was our light switch and fan combo that we had in our kitchen. I was the first one to figure this out, that whenever you pull the cord, and whenever you're touching our metal fridge door, it gives you a nice little shock. After some tests and after some figuring out that yes, this is the thing causing the shock and not static, my brother decides to take some metal wire that he had laying around and connect it from the light switch down to our fridge, loop it up around the door handle, and run it out to where that coil is that he had sitting in our dining room. So once he gets it wrapped around the light switch, he shocks himself with it, and it's a little hot because the wire is actually heating up. As this goes, All five of us stand there bewildered as the wire starts turning bright red, as it starts to heat up and melt. As it starts to melt around the actual coil that came down from the light switch, he tries to pull it off with a bunch of pliers. As he does this, he pulls it off as the wire melts into a puddle on the ground in a straight long line across the ground and melts into the floor of my mother's kitchen. She freaked. And she gave him heck for that. But I still remember with this. I can still go up there today and see the searing on the floor where the metal wire burnt in. We got most of it up, but there are still parts on the floor where there is an ingrate into the tile floor that which he burnt that metal into. Some of the last stories are some of the most hilarious and some of the most fascinating out of the bunch. The first of which, my brother took a cosmetology course with a program that he was able to take. He was able to go to the Votech and take several different classes to see if he could find a trade that he would like to go to for trade school. So him and some buddies went out. They did the masonry and the cosmetology and some of the other ones that they offered. He goes into the cosmetology class, the only guy, and he gets a mediocre grade. But after he does this, he gets this cosmetology head that they said he could keep. He shaves all of the hair off this thing. This thing has short, military-style hair. He then proceeds to draw on it, give it glasses and tattoos out of a Sharpie, and then he goes around the house and starts sticking it in people's beds. I remember the day that my mom went into her bed. She flips on the lights, goes into her bed, thinking that either one of us or my dad was in the bed beside her. She then proceeds to reach over and freaks. You can hear her screams from downstairs as she shrieked at this thing being in her bed with her. He tried this more times with a pretty good success rate among us. Some of us were a little bit less freaked, but my sister of whom got the worst of it. Going into her room in the dark and then laying down. And a couple of us, which he had wrapped in our bed sheets, finding that in your bed. He then also proceeded to put it in the shower and put it in some empty rooms where we didn't see it right away. He also stuck it outside of the window, outside of our front porch on the windowsill. So my mom didn't see it, and she thought for sure that some creepy guy was outside of our window in the dark on our porch, sitting there watching us. She had my dad go out there because she thought that somebody was going to be out there and one of us could get hurt. Oh, let's just say that fate was not too kind on him that night. Oh. He also decided to take the same head with him to that same church camp that year. That head was rolled up inside of his sleeping bag as he went there at the beginning of the week. He had asked the camper to help him carry in some of his bags, and the camper obliged. They brought in the sleeping bag and one of his bags with the head rolled up inside. As the bag unrolled in front of him, the head rolled out and hit the ground. That camper almost fainted. That is how bad that poor guy had it. This head was laying there on the ground as he is shrieking and almost passing out from how badly he was scared and startled by it. The entire rest of the week, that head got its own camp store card where it could buy snacks at the snack shack. It was sitting at them with the meals in the mealtime. It was used as an item for their lessons. I mean, that thing was the epitome of the year. It was used everywhere, and every person was in on the joke. He then continued to stick it in campers' beds every once in a while and scare a bunch of them. Or, sit it in precarious places where people would be freaked out by it. He also did the same thing with a mannequin that he got from one of his friends, a full-size mannequin, which he ended up sticking in the bed of a few different people, including his girlfriend at the time, who he was FaceTiming, and who he scared the living daylights out of. Her mom thought that somebody had murdered her whenever she found her. All I remember was she was not too happy with him for the rest of the next few nights. There was also, at that same camp, a year where they would do, every year, they would have a cabin cleanup, but every year on one specific day, they would choose to do cabin themes. The themes would be different and unique to the cabin. And since there were multiple boys' cabin and multiple girls' cabin, whoever had the best theme would take home the boys' honor cabin and bragging rights for the day. So, the other cabins decided to make nice little rock paths and leaves on the beds to make everything look pretty like a jungle. Our cabin decided that we were going to get a scarecrow costume and put my brother in it, and he was just going to sit in the chair. Keep in mind, the room was completely blank. There was no other decorations. There was no special decorations. There was no leaves on the beds or rock on the path, on the floor. They decided to do this, and he dressed up as a scarecrow with realistic hay, and he was in the cabin itself with nobody else there. They went up for the lesson to teach the kids. As the camp director and some of the staff, like the cooks and such, went into the room to inspect the cabins for the day, he lunged at them, so much so that they freaked. You could hear the screams of these adults, fully grown adults in their 50s and 60s, sometimes their 40s, shrieking from up there in the gymnasium over a mile away. It was incredible. Oh, and I don't think that I have ever seen that much laughing in a room of children, ever. Oh. There was also a time, way back when, I was probably still about 15, 16 at the time, and my brother decided that the electric fence that our pastor and pastor's wife put their garden around, they had a garden with an electric fence surrounding it. After we had got out of Sunday school and church that very day, they were doing a dinner. So, of course, we all went outside. We were all having a good time. And my brother says, "Hey, you see this electric fence over here? How about you go ahead and touch it?" I touched it. Nothing happened. I was wearing rubber shoes. He goes, "Okay, now take off your shoes and touch it." I did. I got a jolt through my body. Not only me, but he tricked all four of us to do it. All four of us to touch this electric fence and get shocked by it. He then convinced all four of us to go in a giant chain, 3 of us with our shoes on, but the last one not wearing shoes, to touch this electric fence and let the jolt run down through all 4 of us. He then convinced both pastors' daughters to join in. He had a chain of children, that of the likes of 6 or 7 children long, with an electric current going through their bodies into the ground from this electric fence. Oh, to this day, I still look at that electric fence and I think, what the heck were we doing? Finally, for my best and last stories, my brother, at about 18 or 19 years old, he took a girl he liked to a concert that she wanted to see. It was about 2 or 3 hours from our house, and he said he'd drive home at about midnight, so he'd be home at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. My mom said, "That's not safe, that's not okay, you need to make sure that you're getting home early, is there any way that you could leave early?" And he said, "Nah, it'll be fine, we'll be fine, you don't have to worry about a thing, we'll be okay." So, To make matters worse, after he got to this concert, the girl that he liked, she went over to the guy who was supposed to be playing at the band, and she gave him the look like, oh, she wanted to be his girlfriend, and she kind of talked to Joe, but not in a way you might think. It was more, oh, isn't he cute? I can't believe that. Oh, I really like him. He's great. So this girl that he was supposed to be going there to show how much he cared about her and to show that he wanted to be her boyfriend is telling him about this guy that she likes and about how she wanted to come to the concert, not because she liked the concert, but because she liked the main guy on the stage and how she wanted to date him. If you want to make matters worse, on the way home, when him and her were driving back, as of the time, it being about 2 or 3 in the morning, a little before that, he dozed off at the wheel, and he hit a guardrail coming around a curve. So he hits this guardrail, and all we get is this call to my mom's cell in the middle of the night that says, hey, you were right. I hit a guardrail. Can you come out and get me? She goes, what? What the heck? It's the middle of the night. I told you so. You should have listened. But after all that gloating and after all that saying about how she was right and how he should have listened to her, she said, all right, we'll go out and we'll get you. So she went out and got him at 3 in the morning and dropped that girl off at her house. But she clearly didn't let him live that down. No, it wasn't until years till she finally let him live that one down. Oh, and finally, saving the best for last, was when my brother hit a bear. No, wait, I know this sounds crazy. Just let me explain. So, my brother had recently graduated that same week. So him and his friend said, hey, let's go. We're going to go celebrate. We'll go out and we'll have a bunch of fun. And we'll go and we'll just go out and have a good time. So he is driving home from the graduation at which his friends are supposed to meet him at this restaurant and celebrate. And this bear just comes across the road. It just starts coming across the road. Just in time for him not to see it. He hits this bear as it rolls up over his windshield, shattering his windshield, denting in the entire top of his entire car. And all we get at the graduation, keep in mind, this is at the graduation. There were other people graduating, and we're congratulating their families. We're saying, hey, that was great. I hope you enjoyed yourself. We get this call in the middle of the conversation that says, just him bawling on the phone. And my mom goes, okay, calm down. What is going on? What is wrong? She is freaking out. And he goes, I hit a bear. And she goes, what? You actually hit a bear? You're kidding me. How the heck did you hit a bear? He goes, I don't know. She goes, no, you're being serious. You are not joking with me. You are not fooling around. You actually hit a bear. And he goes, yes, I hit a bear. She goes, okay, all right, hold on. We'll be there just to get you in a little bit. We'll call the insurance agency and we'll tell them that you wrecked. But we'll be there. Just give us a minute. We'll be there. That was probably one of the most memorable stories that I have ever heard. Because around here where we live, in Pennsylvania, there's not a whole lot of bears to hit. You don't usually see someone on the news who hit a bear. So it was a rare sighting to be sure. Now, there are plenty more stories, and I am sure that there are hundreds at camp, from the Nightlights group, from the campers and the counselors, from friends that we have and other family members. But I know that over the years that I have forgotten hundreds, if not thousands, of other stories just like that. Just crazy things that you would not expect. But that's all I have. That is every last story that I can currently think of and that I have been able to get in my conglomerate of family and friends to tell me. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you laughed and giggled as much as I did while reading this and as much as I did writing this. I thank you for watching, and I hope that you had a very good rest of your night. Thank you.